Game 1 of the 2025 Eastern Conference Finals at Madison Square Garden did not just live up to its billing, it exceeded it. What began as a statement of dominance from the New York Knicks turned into a signature comeback by the Indiana Pacers. The final score read 138-135 in favor of Indiana, after a breathtaking overtime period that silenced one of basketball's most iconic arenas. Yet, beyond the scoreline, the story was far more intricate. This game wasn't just a battle of talent. It was a clash of execution, mentality, and late-game adaptability. In this breakdown, we'll go deeper than just the highlight reel. We'll assess the inner mechanics of each team through a strategic SWOT lens, exploring their strengths, vulnerabilities, and what each war room should be planning ahead of Game 2. Welcome to Jintatsuki Sports, your spot for all things sports. From legendary moments and big-time plays to inspiring stories and deep dives, we bring you the content that keeps the game alive. If you love sports as much as we do, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. New York entered Game 1 energized, feeding off their home crowd and playing with pace and confidence. Jalen Brunson took immediate command, slicing through defenders, operating with surgical precision in the mid-range, and piling up 43 points in a performance that seemed destined to define the night. Alongside him, Karl-Anthony Towns established early control inside, using his size to punish Indiana in the paint. Through 3 quarters, the Knicks built a cushion, leading by as much as 17 in the fourth. Everything pointed toward a routine finish. But the Pacers didn't blink. As the clock ticked down in the final quarter, the tide turned not through any grand shift in scheme, but through an explosion of confidence and cohesion. Aaron Nesmith ignited Indiana's offense with a barrage of perimeter shots, knocking down 6 three-pointers in a single quarter and dragging his team back into contention. Tyrese Haliburton, ever the conductor, orchestrated possessions with calm under pressure. With the Pacers down 2 in the final seconds, Haliburton isolated against Mitchell Robinson, created separation, and buried a step-back jumper to tie the game as the Garden gasped. In overtime, it was former Knick Obi Toppin who delivered the final dagger with an emphatic putback, capping off a comeback that not only flipped the scoreboard, but potentially altered the entire tone of this series. Indiana left the floor with more than just a win. They walked away having uncovered valuable truths about both themselves and their opponents. At their best, the Pacers are fluid and precise. Their offense is built on spacing and movement, not just star power. With Haliburton at the helm, the game slows down even when the pace quickens. He controls time like a metronome, dictating not just his team's rhythm, but his opponent's reactions. When Indiana gets rolling, defenders scramble. That was on full display as Nesmith caught fire, but it wasn't random. The team understood his rhythm and fed it. But even in victory, the Pacers exposed their own limitations. Interior defense remains a glaring concern. Towns and Hartenstein generated easy looks when New York established deep post position, and Indiana struggled to rotate quickly enough on weak side help. There were also stretches where foul trouble disrupted their defensive matchups, breaking the flow of their switching system. Yet their ceiling remains high. With New York heavily reliant on Brunson, Indiana has a window to exploit fatigue and pressure. When Brunson sits, or even when he's tightly doubled, the Knicks' offense visibly slows. The Pacers can seize those moments, applying high traps and pushing transition. Their youth, athleticism, and conditioning allow them to thrive in broken plays and momentum shifts. The biggest threat to Indiana isn't just New York's physicality, it's the Garden itself. MSG is a momentum engine, and in a hostile crowd, one mistake can snowball into 3. The Pacers showed composure, but Game 2 will test if they can replicate that under increased scrutiny. Heading into their war room, Indiana's focus will need to shift toward tightening their paint protection, contesting Towns more aggressively on his first touch rather than reacting after he's already in motion. They'll also want to create more mismatches on offense, pulling New York's bigs into space and attacking them in pick-and-roll sequences. The formula worked in Game 1, but the adjustments will come fast, and Rick Carlisle knows that winning once in the Garden is hard. Winning twice requires sharper execution. The Knicks walked away from Game 1 with plenty of frustration and plenty of lessons. They proved they could control the game's first 40 minutes through physicality, rebounding dominance, and isolation scoring. Brunson's poise under pressure remains elite, and when he gets downhill, very few defenders can contain his footwork and balance. Josh Hart and Quentin Grimes provided disruptive perimeter defense, making Haliburton work hard for every look in the first half. Inside, Robinson and Towns bullied the glass and punished Indiana's lack of interior size. But the problem wasn't their strategy, it was their closing ability. Late in the fourth, New York's offense lost structure. Possessions turned stagnant, the ball stopped moving, and Indiana crept back in. Defensively, rotations that had been sharp all night became slow. Players were caught ball watching, and Nesmith took full advantage, launching unguarded shots without hesitation. Fatigue may have played a role. Thibodeau's rotations are famously tight, and by overtime, the legs looked heavy and the communication lagged. Their war room response should begin with preserving Brunson's energy. That means staggering his minutes more carefully and getting Grimes and Hart involved defensively earlier. So they're not just defensive specialists. It also means reconsidering the bench. Alec Burks or Miles McBride could provide fresh legs and dynamic shifts without sacrificing spacing or ball handling. The Knicks also need to reinforce their perimeter discipline. Against a team like Indiana, you can't afford a second of disengagement. They live off of mental lapses and swing momentum quickly. One bright spot they'll aim to build on is their control of the offensive glass. That must continue. Rebounding is their identity. It can't just be a first-half weapon. And tactically, New York should look to use Towns more as a facilitator at the elbow, not just a low-post threat. Let him create mismatches, especially when Haliburton or Nesmith switch onto bigger bodies. The opportunity to punch back is there. The question is whether the Knicks can stay poised when Indiana makes their next run. Game 1 was more than a thriller, it was a tone setter. Indiana showed resilience and trust in its system, while New York was reminded that no lead is safe in the playoffs without precision down the stretch. Heading into Game 2, both teams now know what the other is capable of. The margins are thin, the adjustments will be swift, and the next 48 minutes could tilt the balance of the entire Eastern Conference. For more playoff analysis, film breakdowns, and game-by-game strategy, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll be right here for every twist of this remarkable series. Thanks for watching Jintotsky Sports. If that video hit home or gave you something to think about, drop a like and let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that bring the heart of sports to life. Until next time, stay inspired and keep chasing greatness.